We now turn our attention to Director's animation features. Animation is the appearance of an image changing over time, and Director has some very powerful tools for creating animations, including fading sprites in and out, the appearance of sprites moving on the stage, rotating sprites, changing their colors, fading them in and out as I'm doing here, and much, much more. The most common types of animation in Director involve moving a sprite on the stage from one location to the other. This is referred to as tweening animation. Another very typical type of Director animation is using a series of related cast members in a sequential manner. They're in sequential frames, like this animation here. This is referred to as frame-by-frame animation. Tween animations are probably the most common and the type of animation technique that you'll want to master with Director. Tweening is a traditional animation term that describes the process in which a lead animator draws the animation frames called keyframes, where major changes take place, and then assistants draw the frames in between. So in this case I have a series of sprites that are transparent and a series of sprites that are fully opaque, and then Director is tweening all the in-between stages there so that it appears that they're fading in or fading out depending on which direction you're going. In this case they're fading in because I'm starting with transparent sprites and ending with fully opaque sprites, but you can easily go the other way too. So tweening in Director lets you define properties for sprite keyframes, and then Director changes the properties in the frames in between. Tweening is a very efficient method of animating movies for websites because no additional data needs to be downloaded when a single cast member changes. In contrast, frame-by-frame animation involves manually creating every frame in an animation, whether that involves switching cast members for a sprite or manually changing the settings for sprites on a stage. In this case I just have a series of these buttons representing different red wines appearing one after the other on the stage. I had to do that manually, set that up. To demonstrate the differences between a tween animation and a frame-by-frame animation, I've opened up a new file with several cast members in it. Let me drag out this first cast member onto the stage, like so. And let's undo that. And now let's take my skew and rotate tool and rotate this cast member here, like so. And now let's add another keyframe out here, insert keyframe out at frame 30, and let's rotate this back like so. And notice that Director sets up the tween animation for me automatically, creating all the in-between rotational states of that rectangle. Let's go ahead and hide that layer and unhide the channel number 1 right there. And this time let's drag out the same cast member and have it occupy only several frames. And now let's drag out the next one and likewise have it occupy only several frames. So I'm going to be using all 3 cast members in this case. And now you can see that this is animating. I'm using much more memory space here since I'm using 3 cast members, so it's also a little bit jumpy. But you do have an animation there. To make that smoother, I would need to create more cast members of different rotational angles here, but you get the idea. There are 2 animations that look similar, but they're actually created much differently. You'd probably use this second method, this frame-by-frame method, if you had, for example, a figure walking across the stage where each figure needed to have its legs and arm positions in a different location. So in this case, it's probably better to do a tween animation, and most animations in your Director projects will be tween animations. So let me now move on to the next movie. Go over in more detail this method of using the tweening capabilities of Director to create your animations.